Eric Dubay is someone who will believe anything so long as it's not true. I'm not kidding. You could say anything to this guy, and on the sole condition that it is false, he will start making videos in support of it. And if there's anything crazier than some weirdo making these videos, it's usually the comment section of these videos. And unlike my other similar videos, I actually did watch every single video this time. As I expected, there was nothing worthwhile in any of them. That being said, I'll give you a brief rundown of each video before we read the comments. The first video is titled, "How Governments Could Save the World," if they cared. This video is essentially Eric saying the government could solve homelessness if they just gave every homeless person a free house. Or I guess more specifically, a free land to build their own house on, which is like an actual toddler level solution. This would also solve world hunger somehow. Governments should be afraid of their people, not people afraid of their government. Yes, your senator should be worried every second that someone will murder him if he doesn't do something you specifically like. Physical slavery requires the slaves to be housed and fed. Economic slavery requires the slaves to house and feed themselves. There's also a third kind of slavery. It's called natural slavery, where you have to find and eat food and drink water so you won't die. Your body's literally holding you hostage. You can count on people to ignore all warnings. Usually they side with the enemy against themselves. Isn't it crazy? Yes, the government is your enemy because it's not giving you free land. I also forgot that part of the video was eliminate taxes altogether. Just no more taxes. I'm beginning to think genius is found merely in someone that has a knack for pointing out the obvious. Dude, I have a 2-month-old baby that will blow your mind. Truth. I have felt this all my life. We are prisoners here, yet the masses enjoy their enslavement. People will say that anything is slavery. Eric says more than 6.5 minutes, and most politicians do in their entire life. It all comes back to the banking system owners, not governments. Governments are employees of the bankers. Yes, it's bankers, it's governments, it's the chess club, it's the PCUSA, it's the WNBA, it's Google, it's Wikipedia, it's the Catholic Church, it's anybody. 6 billion going to a certain country fighting a so-called war, whilst children are starving across the plain. Just imagine. I like how no matter what anybody's talking about, there's always going to be someone who's like, but starving children. Did you know? Starving children. Starving children. But that's not actually the reason I decided to include this one. The reason was because of the absolutely horrendous attempt at ellipses, which aren't even necessary in the first place. You should be crucified if you use ellipses this poorly. There are people or entities behind the ones we know as government officials that we never see who are pulling the strings. This is all I have to fall back on for our shared and intentionally broken human condition. I wonder what kind of entities he thinks are behind government officials. Do you think it could possibly be just that some people are bad? I suspect that land is actually unlimited and we're stuck on a farm, if you will. We could literally be a day flight away from Utopia. What was that movie? The Island, where they were growing people for spare parts? Lol. How could the land be unlimited? The next video is You Know Nothing, which is essentially just Eric Dubay saying, even though there might be evidence right in front of your fucking face, there's no way to be sure that you know anything. Which is kind of weird because he certainly seems to be very sure of a lot of his beliefs, but I guess it doesn't apply to him. The more time passes, the stranger the world and everything in it seems, and the less sure I am about anything. I'm sure that if I believed every single thing that I saw, the world would seem like a scary place too. The only thing I know for certain is we were lied to about absolutely everything. Some have heard tell everything you know is a lie. Even the most awakened amongst us cannot fathom the extent of the truth in that statement. How do you know that you weren't lied to about everything you know being a lie? If everything you know is a lie, then whoever told you that must have been lying, which would mean they were telling the truth. Long story short, it's a paradox. It's fucking stupid. As human beings, we tend to be consumed in arrogance, assuming we know everything, dismissive of opposing views, believing nothing to be true if science hasn't proven it so. There are things in and outside this world that are absolutely beyond our comprehension. A weird misconception people seem to have about science is that it's like some secret organization that determines what's true. But it's just what people think. It's what people who know a lot about a certain subject have observed in the world. It's not something that's declared, it's something that's observed. I'd rather have questions I can't answer than answers I can't question. You can question answers. It's just you typically get an answer that solves that question and you just reject it because you don't want it. What people think they know isn't all there is to know. That's why people are always looking for new stuff to know. 5 grams of dried mushrooms taught me more than any book, video, ideology, or person ever has. The more neurons you fry, the freer you'll be. Amazing timing. Been rubbing my true wisdom stone every day. So you just watched and presumably agree with a video that says you can't actually know anything for sure. But then you also believe in a stone that does invisible magic that has no measurable results at all. I love the consistency. It's perfect. Also, if you've been rubbing your true wisdom stone every day, eventually you are going to come across something you consider true wisdom. Unless true wisdom stone is a euphemism. The next video is, why would they lie about flat Earth? Which, despite the title, is actually not an answer to the question, why would they lie about the shape of the Earth, but is in fact just about 13 minutes of Eric Dubays saying why he actually doesn't need to answer that question, and you're in the wrong for asking it. And no, I am not joking at all.
We flat earthers are not the malefactors in this situation, so we simply cannot adequately answer such a question without being inside the minds of the culprits. It should be obvious that asking uninvolved parties about the inner motives of other people is a fruitless and impossible endeavor. So why then is this universally the #1 most common frequently asked question right after someone identifies a flat earther? The query is almost always accompanied by a smirk, a sneer, an eye roll, or outright laughter, and this gives away the underlying intention of asking. The majority of people asking this question have not actually done any research into the subject, and know full well that uninvolved parties cannot provide another's motive. Therefore, this knee-jerk phrase, "but why would they lie," so commonly repeated, is much more so a snarky defense mechanism than a genuine question.
Now's probably a good time to bring up something I noticed while watching Eric Dubays' videos. Despite the fact that he tries to come off as this hippie yoga guru with this soft-spoken voice and he's really calm, he's actually a pretty smug and kind of bitter guy. He doesn't seem nice at all, despite his calm demeanor, which doesn't seem to stop his fans from flooding his comment section with infatuated comments that are just they can't stop praising him, which is not a phenomenon I've noticed on any other channel other than the Spiritual Gaia channel or those movies that I talked about. Just non-stop constant praise. Every video he uploads, they act like it's a masterpiece. I don't know what that means, but I'm just gonna say psyop because that's something people like to say. Psyop. The saddest answer, but true, is, well, they lie about everything else. So basically what you're saying is, how do we know they're liars? Well, because they lie about everything. How do we know they lie about everything? Because they're liars. Circles are fun. Trying to explain to someone half asleep about the real parasites behind this deception is extremely hard and usually ends up making me look bad. Yeah, I'm sure the reason you look bad is just because the other person isn't doing their side of the conversation right. The answer to most human actions is simply ego. This is something they don't seem to smell on Eric Dubays. It's a yardstick to test our gullibility. There had to be a less provable yardstick that they could use. The real question is, why would they tell the truth? But you could say that about anything. How do I know that this house isn't going to burn down the second I step inside? If you were planning to set me on fire, you would tell me the house isn't going to burn down. Why would you tell me the truth? Why would they ever tell the truth? Space ? Most people need to be lied to so they can live in fear and justify their unethical and immoral behaviors. How does the shape of the planet justify any immoral behaviors? The old, why would they lie question. Why would they lie? If it's so obvious, just say the answer to that question. I used to get mad when people ask why no matter what reason I gave, they would just get madder, but I've realized now them asking is really just asking how and wanting more answers. They're on the verge of fighting out the truth. They just need a little push. Great sentence and very coherent. When asked why they would lie, ask back. So they don't lie? After all, who in the hell trusts the government? These people will brag about their critical thinking skills and how open-minded they are, but if something doesn't fit their very, very narrow view of the world, the government said something, so it must be a lie, then they completely disregard it and just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. Before even watching, I just wanted to say that the reason why they're lying is because it proves the existence of God from the Christian Bible, as opposed to the Hindu Bible. How, exactly? Which Bible passage says the earth is flat? Or I guess they don't necessarily make reference to a Bible passage, but somehow just the earth being flat would make the God of the Christian Bible real, as opposed to the Shinto Bible. Why ask why? Follow the money. I love how much of a non-answer that is, because a globe can be attacked by beings from other planets. Flat Earth with dome, no aliens. The aliens, however, have been here from the beginning. Fallen angels. I don't know if this guy is just fucking around, but if he is, this is flawless. If he is serious, he probably needs intense psychiatric help, or at least just a lesson in theology. Once you understand the psychological effect that constant lying, gaslighting, has on a person, you will only then fully understand why we are bombarded with lies all the time. It is impossible to know who you are if your reality is a lie. Your true identity is destroyed. Your ability to use your cognitive capabilities and critical reasoning is obliterated. And therefore, all you know is do as we say. We know what is best for you, our dear little slave. We are their slaves, whichever way you look at it. No one escapes the Matrix, period. This reality is sickening. This guy had a lot to say, but I don't really understand the initial thing. The psychological effect constantly being lied to has. But if you don't know you're being lied to, then it's really no difference to you, is it? You're probably wondering how Eric Dubay comes to all of these brilliant conclusions, and if so, you're in luck, because the next video we're looking at is how to find the truth. In this video, Eric compares, finding the truth about anything to a police investigation, where they have to investigate every little piece of evidence and, be open to any sort of possibility about the case. Except the things that he denies are like if the case had a confession, video evidence, means, motive, and the detective was still like, but what if he just kind of killed himself, maybe? Like, initially, the idea of, considering every possibility is good. It's a good way to approach learning something. Except he's asking you to treat something with mountains upon mountains of evidence and his claim as having exactly the same weight. And he laments that things like, flat earth and whatever other spiritual guru shit he believes in isn't being taught in schools as equally true as any other science or even math. Truth doesn't fear investigation and open debate. Except these things were already investigated and debated, and all of the evidence from those investigations and all of the conclusions from those debates are publicly available, easy to access. You can learn if you want to, but you're choosing not to. The closer one gets to the truth, the more unpalatable and viscerally uncomfortable it becomes. I mean, it's like I said before, if you believe anything, I'm sure that gets pretty scary after a while. COVID was created out of fear of the Flat Earth movement, and they had to shut us up with the masks at the time because Flat Earth and the truth of our situation about how they lied and we are enslaved came to the forefront of the news, and they had to shut it down with the masks as we scared the elites so badly they felt they had to put masks on our faces to shut the flat earthers and truthers up. Do not forget COVID and how I warned you this was coming. They are coming for us and always happen. But Flat Earth exposed these tyrants for who they really are when they masked us up for speaking about it. Well put. I mean, you can't argue with logic like that. But what you can argue with is those ellipses. What do you think an ellipses is? Most people would agree that it's very possible that people could be brainwashed into believing a lie. These same people would also agree it can happen to everyone but them. And I'm sure it hasn't happened to this guy. When people build a society and their policies are derived from lies, it's like building a house on sinking sand. Yeah, that's why America never went anywhere and was just kind of swiftly forgotten and doesn't exist anymore. Now we have the Charlie Kirk magic bullet, Lamau. It's funny to me how people will say stuff like that. They'll make the loosest connections to anything anywhere. But then when there was a person sitting on a roof with a gun pointed at someone, and then suddenly that person's neck explodes, they say it couldn't have been the gunman on the roof. It had to be somebody else. This is a psyop. Eric Dubay replies with the longest comment I've seen so far. I'm not reading all of that, but he seems to be comparing the assassination of Charlie Kirk to a movie, which is, it's something they do a lot. It's like, oh, this is something that happened in real life, but 30 years ago, something kind of similar happened in the movie. Which, I mean, first of all, how would they know that far in advance that they're going to assassinate Charlie Kirk? And why would they make a movie about it before it happens? Oh shit, I just looked it up. Nicolas Cage is in this movie. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. I'm just a really big fan of Nicolas Cage. Greetings from Poland. Don't do that to the Polish. Haven't they been through enough? They don't need you associating yourself with them. All of these situations, 9/11 and JFK, all you have to do is look up and research Freemasonry. The ones that are 33rd degrees are Satanists and worship angels, aka principalities. See Colossians 2:18. The Freemasons use rituals to communicate to principalities, while the lesser demons get people to sin to help with the false physical reality established by Satan and his spiritual government. Do I even need to say that next to none of what he said has any basis in any accepted theology? For reference, here's Colossians 2:18. Kinda similar, but doesn't really have anything to do with lesser demons or spiritual governance by Satan or anything like that. Also, I don't know much about Freemasonry, but to my knowledge, you have to be religious to join. So that kind of contradicts with the whole worshiping Satan thing that you talked about. And also, that doesn't explain why they would be related to 9/11 or the JFK assassination. His next video is God the Gaslighter, which is essentially just him attacking Abrahamic religion with a bunch of old atheist talking points. He is not a Christian, as you would imagine, but he does believe in an intelligent God, but it's more of like a hippy-dippy kind of, it's whatever, man, kind of God. You would think this might put off some of his Christian viewers, but no, every aspect of human life has been built on a foundation of deception. From my life experiences, I no longer take anything as fact. I rely on my senses and intuition to guide me. Typically, using your senses is a good way to navigate. It's hard to navigate with your eyes closed and your ears plugged. It's become clear that this realm is a hellish realm. Now, how do I get out? Anyone know? I like how he's asking for advice. I mean, I have one suggestion, but it's not really the kind of thing you can say on YouTube. I called this out when I was 7 years old. That's good because it sounds like something a 7-year-old would say. So many of these comments are like this. It's like, oh, when I was a little kid, I didn't believe that. You shouldn't believe things still now that you believed as a little kid. You should kind of, evolve a little bit. Then who built the firmament? That is a good point, man. Would love to see an Eric Dubay video on the true historical timeline. You know what? Actually, so would I. I grew up dealing with this. After years of gaslighting, I exploded and gave my abusers the fright of their lives. Never back down and have a willingness to harm your abuser. Yeah, I'm sure you gave your abusers the fright of their lives when you stormed out of Thanksgiving 2013 because you were so mad. There is a creator behind this amazing world of intelligence design, but oh my gosh. I am gonna have a schizophrenic meltdown of my own if I see one more fucking ellipses that is used like how these apes are using it. What do you think an ellipses is for, and why? Why, on this intelligence design Earth, do you believe that there is a space before the ellipses? When has that ever been the case? Either way, there is no dogmatic god/gods we should worship. It's a form of control and scapegoat for the most evil things that we do. But if there's no dogma, then who's to say what's evil and what's not? If there even is such a thing as evil. What about ghosts, etc.? I like this guy's thinking. What about ghosts? Don't sweat it, Eric. It's all just a dream. You will wake soon to your higher mind, and there you will be together. None of it is even happening. Worlds within worlds within worlds. Is this guy trying to recruit Eric into a cult? Alright, the next video is the real reason you're not a flat earther. The real reason you're not a flat earther is well, you don't accept the random bullshit that people like Eric say. You use your critical thinking skills and you look at evidence instead of using memes as your source for scientific research. I know it sounds like I'm just blowing this video off, but that really is all the video is he just talks about how right he is without any arguments. He just says that he's right over and over again, and you are simply not willing to believe the evidence. The evidence is, of course, all of the memes that he puts on screen throughout the video. While researching Flat Earth, I distinctly remember arriving at a point where two opposing trains of thought were arguing with each other within my mind. One of them was saying that Flat Earth is too outlandish and absurd to be true, and the other stating that the evidence and the facts cannot be ignored, regardless of how outlandish it appeared to be. Intellectual honesty and humility, as you've said, Eric, won out in the end. Now it's the globe that is evidently outlandish and absurd to me. This guy, I actually kind of feel bad for, if he's being honest, because flat earthers will do this thing where they will argue using a nugget of truth, but not, give you the whole thing. So, for example, they'll say things like, how come, that building in the distance, which should be over the curve, I can still see? But all of these examples come from really high up places, and they're usually looking at something really tall. So, of course, you're going to be able to see it a little bit longer than just the flat ground. But if you don't look into that further, like, let's say you hear that, and you're like, all right, that sounds ridiculous, let me look that up, and you find out that it's true, you might be like, oh, well, hang on, maybe they're actually right about this stuff. But of course they're not. They're just sprinkling a little bit of truth on bullshit. Or rather, they're saying something that is true, but they're coming to the wrong conclusion. But I guess to be fair, that is also kind of on them for not looking into it further. So it's not just that Globers haven't dove deep enough into flat Earth, so they haven't gone that deep on anything in their lives, and the concept of going deep terrifies them. This one's actually true. Going off the deep end does terrify me. I am still ashamed that I was convinced water could stick to a ball. Why couldn't water stick to a ball? Why is a sphere bad? What makes a flat surface model better? Reality makes it better. Declaring something reality automatically makes it true. I myself used to be an individual who was a believer in the globe's interesting theoretical imaginings. Once you have truly seen it as it is, you will never again unsee it. Dang, bro. I just saw the final experiment Midnight Sun vid. Looks like we were wrong, my man. I know gravity and air pressure without a container and it's flat to our senses. But this was one of those things. I'm pretty sure this guy is being sarcastic. They're usually so incoherent it's hard to tell, but to be honest, I can't focus because I don't know if you noticed, but the ellipses? Let's just move on from this one. But what about the International Space Station? It is clear from the point of view from the station that Earth is not flat. And this guy gives the ever-scientific response, bruh. They made me believe the Earth was too big to detect a curve. I was too young to realize that lie. As for why that's a lie, he simply doesn't elaborate. Okay, the final video is Schools, Courts, Churches, and the Cult of Saturn. And it's been several hours since I watched this video, and I don't remember what it's about. Doctors and lawyers are the most indoctrinated members of any society. That's why we have been programmed to hold them in such high regard. We respect the most brainwashed among us. What a kick in the nuts. I mean, you know how lawyers are so highly respected. No one can get enough of lawyers. They love those guys. Cult of Saturn equals small hat men. Oh, wow. When Germany lost the war, so did the humanity. If you tell a lie big enough, tell it frequently enough, it will be believed. I think I summed it up pretty well earlier when I said, oh, wow. Indoctrination starts as soon as someone exits the womb. Only a fool would allow the state to have unfettered access to its children. Does the state get unfettered access to you as soon as you're born? The hand signals are constantly in plain sight. What kind of hand signs? It's all a big know your place by the tyrants. As though the alleged tyrants don't also go to school. Our education system is built on the Prussian style, where they educate the masses how to do menial tasks, but not how to use critical thinking skills. Control the education, you control the mind. I feel like that's the opposite of the truth. I feel like the point of school is to teach you stuff you don't need to know in order to make you a more well-rounded person. Eric is not. Can you say that word? What is the limit of that word? Either way, I love the point that, he would, he's under threat. They're gonna take him out for for releasing this stuff like he's a Boeing whistleblower. Like he's in any sort of danger, like he hasn't been doing this without consequence for years. We are all slaves. They created money and gave it more value than human life. The money you think you earn just goes right back to the system. Deny the system by not working on a modern plantation or by creating your own mini plantation, and they whip you with denial of housing, utilities, healthcare, food, clean water, etc. We are trapped. It is really infuriating how people will compare normal living conditions that have been present throughout all of history since before civilizations were formed, and they'll act as though that's just as bad as being held in bondage. That sucks, and the people who say shit like this suck. Why a recording device is banned in court? Demons don't allow their manifestations to leave evidence. I don't know if it's true that recording devices are banned in court, but don't courts have stenographers whose job it is to write down everything that's said and happens? Also, aren't there security cameras? Like, I feel like there's whole YouTube channels that are sprung up around court cams. So it's not, hard to document stuff that happens in court. That's all the Eric Dubay I'll inflict on you for right now. If you'd consider subscribing, I'd appreciate that. Not to be the guy who begs for subscribers, but I've been at 49 subscribers for 3 months, and I'd appreciate it if you wanted to be number 50.